G7 leaders have arrived in Germany for the start of a 3-day summit, but activists are also demanding that they do more to fight climate change. A city mourns the day after a gunman killed 2 people outside an LGBTQ+ nightclub in Norway's capital.
Russia eyes up the capture of Lysychansk, the last Ukrainian-held city in the Luhansk region.
US President Joe Biden has arrived in Munich for the start of the G7 summit. The 3-day event will reportedly focus on putting more pressure on Moscow, finding ways to transition away from Russian energy sources, and launching infrastructure projects in the global south to counter China's growing global influence. French President Emmanuel Macron will also attend the event that starts Sunday, in addition to the leaders of Japan, Italy, Canada, Germany, and the United Kingdom. The start of the summit was also marked with several protests in Germany. In Munich, between 4,000 and 6,000 people marched in the streets to call for the G7 countries to do more to fight climate change. Their demands include phasing out fossil fuels and preserving biodiversity. One participant said he was there because I want to say that what the G7 is planning is not in the interest of the climate, not in the interest of the people. They're more likely to engage in war propaganda. They're trying to integrate other states into their ideologies and their strategies. This is what we have to fight against. Greenpeace activists also created a giant peace sign made out of flaming torches on the side of a mountain. Their message was that whoever wants peace must phase out fossil fuels. And a non-governmental organization projected the images of the G7 leaders onto a ski ramp to draw focus to global hunger. People gathered to lay flowers and pride flags where a tragic shooting took place on Saturday. Around 1 a.m. that morning, a gunman opened fire in 3 locations in Norway's capital, including an LGBTQ+ nightclub, killing 2 people and injuring 21 more. The event took place hours before Oslo's Pride Parade was meant to begin, and it devastated the city's LGBTQ+ community. The country's crown prince was one of the mourners at the site, and he told reporters, "It is important that we defend who we are. That Norway is a country where people are allowed to love who they want and be with who they want." That was meant to be marked today, but it was not like that. We saw it for ourselves. So it is important that we stand up for our rights and our values. Oslo's Pride Parade was postponed after the shooting, which authorities called an Islamist terror act. However, they added that it's too early to determine if the shooter specifically targeted the LGBTQ+ community.
Russian forces now have a firm grip on the city of Lysychansk as they try to block off the city in eastern Ukraine after bombarding its twin city Severodonetsk to smithereens. Tanks and army vehicles now circle around the city, with fights between Ukrainian and Russian soldiers breaking out on the streets. And it's not just on the ground. Russia's defense military released footage of military airstrikes being carried out along eastern Ukraine, striking what appears to be a warehouse. The capturing of Lysychansk would be a huge victory for Russia, as is the last city held by Ukraine in the Luhansk region. As a key ally to Russia, Belarus's President Alexander Lukashenko met his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin, where he pledged to help Belarus militarily. Mr. Putin says, in the coming months we will transfer to Belarus Iskander-M tactical missile systems, which can use both ballistic and cruise missiles, both conventional and nuclear. In the Kharkiv region, there is no respite for citizens either, as the region continues to borne the brunt of Moscow's offensive. Houses, apartments and warehouses were all targeted in the latest airstrike attack, leaving all but nothing in its wake. Ukraine's decision this week to restrict Russian literature and music has raised a few eyebrows. No less so in Kyiv, where book lovers are divided on the move. In a page-turning decision, Ukraine's government is keen to sever ties with Russia. Shopkeepers are not so sure how it will work.
It is impossible to implement it. They made this law, but how to implement it, nobody knows. What should we do? Take these books, put them in the street and burn them?
For other bookkeepers like Anatoly, the new laws are very much welcomed.
This is war, so in my opinion, we need harsher measures, of course, and we need to cancel a lot of things related to Russification that took place in the past. This is my opinion.
While some are calling for harsher measures, others see this as a huge distraction.
The consequences of the war with Russia are very serious. But I think that today to ratify such a law is really not appropriate. Right now, there are much more important problems.
In times of war, many Ukrainians are turning to their own literature for inspiration.
Since the beginning of the war, the demand for Ukrainian literature and Ukrainian writers has greatly increased. That's why I think we will publish new writers.
The first of the two laws, if signed, will prohibit the import of books published in Russia and Belarus. The second law will ban the printing of books by Russian citizens. The ban does not apply to great classics, so Pushkin and Tolstoy are spared.
Banner-clad protesters took to Munich streets in their thousands before the beginning of this year's G7 summit. They called for peace in Ukraine and demanded the phasing out of fossil fuels. A message the German Chancellor seemed to share.
Russia's brutal war against Ukraine is also having an impact here. Many things we buy have become more expensive. For instance, food, but especially the prices of energy. Now it's important that we discuss the situation and at the same time take care to stop man-made climate change.
Reassuring words, so what drives this passionate crowd? For the director of anti-nuclear pressure group Campact, it's the need for action.
We
don't need nice pictures for the photo albums of the G7 heads of government. We need concrete decisions, completely different policies. We need to exit oil, coal and gas. The war in Ukraine has shown very clearly how dependent we are. And we need to enter renewable sources of energy. And we want to see such concrete decisions in Elmau.
Before the G7 summit kicks off on Sunday, it's time for activists to take the stage. A turbulent start to a week of international talks. European Union chief Josep Borrell will meet Iranian Foreign Minister Amir Abdollahian in Tehran for new talks about the 2015 nuclear deal. Discussions to return the US to the deal have been stalled since March. The US's refusal to remove the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps from their terror list led to a breakdown in discussions. Borrell announced his surprise visit on Twitter, saying diplomacy will be the only way through the tensions. The deal, formerly known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, gave Iran relief from sanctions for guarantees they will not develop a nuclear weapon, something Tehran has always denied wanting to do. The US withdrew from the deal in 2018 before imposing tough sanctions on Iran. But Iranian officials say they are serious about reaching an agreement.
At least 18 migrants have died, and another 76 were injured after trying to cross from Morocco into Spain's Melilla enclave. The casualties occurred after 2,000 migrants attempted to storm a high fence that separates the North African country from its EU neighbour. More than 100 people were able to cross the boundary after a 2-hour skirmish with border officers. Moroccan guards reportedly deployed a large amount of force to try to prevent people from crossing the border. Once across, around 130 men were taken to a reception center for immigrants. Over the past decade, migrants have tried to cross into the Spanish enclave as a route into Europe, though it is heavily guarded. Some of the men were seen celebrating once they reached Spanish soil. Friday's mass crossing attempt was the first on the border since Morocco and Spain mended diplomatic ties in March.